In early 80s and 70s, we had a lot of elephants in Chikwabeta and buffaloes.
Tunali nyama zambili pamene tinali kulantinga.
When the Minister of Tourism banned no safari hunting to take place in this area, all the poachers from the tarmac came and killed the animals. There was a terrible poaching in this area.
There's no source of income here. They can't do farming because the land is not fertile for that.
We had severe hunger. The area had nothing.
Thank you very much.
And like I said to you, you bring us valid information.
Thank you very much.
You bring us information, good information.
All right.
If we make arrests, I pay you for that information.
All right.
No matter religion, politics, or background, as long as humans have walked on 2 feet, they have had a relationship with the earth and its wildlife. They hunted for food, to create tools and to stay warm. They followed the animal migrations and the fish runs. They harvested fruit, mushrooms, and honey. All produced what they needed to survive. Humans adored their lodges with skins, skulls, horns, and claws, proving an ability to provide for the people. As mankind evolved from a hunting and gathering society to cultivating the land and domesticating animals, their relationship with wild animals changed. Humans began to multiply. Their relationship and reliance on nature was disconnected. Food production was industrialized. The natural habitats of wild animals disappeared, slashed and burned and plowed under. Domestic animal parts became interwoven with the very fabric of society: food, clothing, cosmetics, and medicine. Due to this disconnect with nature, humans began to think wild animals were an extension of humanity. Wildlife was no longer wild. Today, around the world, wild animals only remain in small pockets of habitat. Will they survive? Zambia in the lower Luano game management area stretches out over 1.2 million acres. It's almost the size of the state of Delaware. It's so remote, some young residents have never seen a white man. From the early days of Zambia's history through the 1980s, it was known as one of the crown jewels of African safari hunting. It was once the home of healthy populations of Africa's Big Five: elephant, rhino, lion, leopard, and Cape buffalo. Safari hunting bans in 1987 and again in 2002 and 2003 ushered in the wholesale slaughter of wild game. After the hunting bans, jobs and income the safari industry provided disappeared. The safari hunting industry was tasked with protecting the animals, but when they left, uncontrolled subsistence and game meat poaching occurred unhindered. The Zambian government labeled the area as game depleted, thus no legal hunting has occurred for almost 2 decades. For over 500 years, the Loano has been the historic home of the Soli people. They are subsistence farmers whose lives ebb and flow with the whims of nature. Drought, floods, insects, human-wildlife conflict, and disease all play a part in their constant struggle to survive. The leader of the Soli people in the Lower Loano is a woman, Her Royal Highness Chief Shekabeta.
Nipindu pasapafesi twatwaiwananga ndabanyama nkashikwani bantu kushina mapochi pano tulawono dawa umo twandanga mukatupe kunfi vambi vachi vakaisa vakatuinze cha vakatunyamvirisheko kuno afwe kuno twapenga tuli apo chakulya kuno chakulya nyoto natukutuletera masukulu kuliya minshi kuliya vana va sukulu vatukashi valepera kuya kusukulu bifo kai vaka ndalama kuliya chakuya kwamba chimwana lapasa kuya kusukulu kilakanganga mlandi wa upenshi na maisha ao vapenga valia ndalama kwamba chinitwale mwana kusukulu mlandi wa upenshi kuno kwetu kati twapenga maningi epunda mantangofu shakami ndimwini kwamba nyanyande yani nani notoni safari operator.
I was running a customs clearing company, customs clearing and forwarding company in Lusaka.
Epunda imana ku office kokwendi ndiya kuya kuboma ndamwine ndamuyanda.
And she said, well, I've come to see you because I've got a problem. It was her coming to me saying, we want you to come here. I said to her, all right, no problem, we'll come and have a look.
Echibalanchia kwamba chibana bale wanga pa utwanike kuno chitwaikala kuno kandanga muna mumutunya mfirisheko mwikale kuno notonyelava umo.
And she came to us and she said, I need my area to be a GMA, but I want it to be done in such a way that my people and the community can benefit from that.
Makasa safari yava tulawononga wachinyama chilainganisa choni chilafulunga chilawonekenga chaina.
She knew that if something wasn't done, the wildlife that they've got in this area would basically have been lost.
Vana walawononga ntito mlandu wa jani wanyama walawononga jani bantu vainsa safari makasa vainsa safari ndalama chilapulu.
She doesn't have an education. She cannot speak English. But it does not decry from her intelligence or her ability to lead her people. And we had a meeting in the community with, I think there must have been 75 odd people. The chief plus the senior princess, Agnes, was there, Kalunga. We had this amazing meeting. The women in this area, when they are taken to by something, when they have some interest in their head, they start ululating. And they start ululating, and they all just got up and they started. And the chieftainess was doing the same thing, and I realized that we'd made an impact. Something like this was going to work. And a woman stood up and asked me, what are you doing here? And how long are you going to be here for? And I looked at her, and I said to her, when we're done with this meeting, you go outside and you get a pick and a shovel. You see that big tree over there? You dig a hole that's 6 foot long, 3 feet wide, and 6 feet deep. And leave that hole like that. When I die, you take me and bury me in that hole.
There are many threats in the Loano. Antipathy towards the chief by dark forces looking to steal land, to the criminal poaching gangs. Some Western governments are considering hunting trophy import bans. We asked Her Royal Highness what effect these bans, which would eliminate the importation of legally harvested wildlife by tourist hunters, would have on her people.
Ewo wetu mbili chwa vilena wakute ng'ombe sawa. Na fwetu ng'ombe chetu ni nyama. Nyama esitati tunyamkirishinga fwe kuno. Hapo ni kukanisha nyama kushinani. Bashina kwishingana. Chakwera kubelengi wawa. Ne kwamba tibashine shonse
For the last 20 years, there's not a single hunting license that's been bought by any safari operator in this area. The reason for that was that the safari companies didn't believe that the area was viable. The area is quite hostile. It's very hilly, it's very rocky. Because it's so difficult for people to grow crops here, and because of the big populations of particularly baboons and monkeys, bush pig, warthog, they found that when they tried to grow crops, the crops were being devastated by the wildlife. So they then looked at that and said, okay, if we can't make use of the crop, we'll make use of the wildlife. So then they started now putting out snares and started harvesting the wildlife for themselves.
The wildlife, say, around here was non-existent. There was really nothing. I mean, the amount of snares that we've taken out, it's a wonder how anything was even still alive back then.
Bushmeat in Africa is a major source of income. It's very high on the menu list for people in the cities. Everybody feels that it's their right to eat bushmeat, and they always have done, and so they still will do, and people know that they can market their bushmeat in the cities. If you can teach them and show them that if they leave the animal alive, you can selectively harvest animals from their wildlife populations, and they can get a benefit from that harvest, they're much more likely to help you to look after them. In Luano, the community were basically ignored. And as a result of that, the communities then took over and tried to use that resource for themselves by poaching, by snaring, by taking out what wildlife they could in an area that's very difficult for people to exist in anyway. There were very few village scouts that were operational in the area. They were being paid an incredibly nominal amount of money, and they were being given no support at all. They had no uniforms, they had no boots. There were very few scouts. I think there were only maybe 8 or 10. And the amount of anti-poaching work that they did, who knows? Who knows what it was? I would have to say that it was the barest minimum. We've given them uniforms, we give them proper rations, we give them everything they need to go out and safely do a patrol in the bush to look for poachers and to keep poachers away from this area. We've given people employment because we know that the benefit of that is going to come. It's going to come from the wildlife. If you stop people from coming in here and paying a tourist dollar to hunt an animal, the people here will go back to where they were before. The employable person will leave this area. They will leave the old, they'll leave the very young. And it's unthinkable to think that it's not the wildlife that are going to be giving those people that income.
We've got two kinds of poaching. We've got the local poachers, they'll go out to take an impala or a warthog or something, they'll run them with a few dogs. They'll kill just to feed their family and that. The big poaching that they do is with snaring. When people put snares, it's obviously in strategic places, so our scouts know most of the people here, everyone's related to everyone. We give rewards to the community that give us any information on who the poachers are or they suspect. If you've got weapons, if you've got snares, surrender them. I will pay a reward, and we paid rewards. We got literally thousands of snares. And if we catch them, we get them to do some community work. They'll make vlogs for a school, all community stuff. But the commercial poachers that come in here, there'll generally be 2 or 3 guys that come in together. These guys are tough. I mean, they'll walk in during the night, they'll leave their place at 8 o'clock at night, they'll be in here by 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Every animal has to drink at some stage, so they just sit by the waterholes. Generally, they'll target kudu. Because it's a bigger animal, they're not going to risk shooting just to get enough meat, like pug and pile or something. They'll shoot a kudu, they dry it. Now they don't even dry it anymore because they know we'll be onto them. So what happens is they shoot it, they cover it up, they mark it, and then they'll go into cell phone signal. What they call their runners. The runners will come in, 7, 8 guys will cut out that kudu that night and get it out under darkness.
This was our first step with the community in looking after the community, looking after people in form of employment and providing a source of protein on their doorstep.
The fish farm has brought job opportunities to our local communities. It has brought some income.
We've got several fish farm projects. The main one that we started off with at Kapanda here consists of 6 tanks, 95,000 litre tanks. With a circulating system, you control every aspect of that fish's environment. You control the water quality, you control the air coming in there, everything is controlled by us. Currently, we are stocking our tanks at the lowest density at about 5,000 fish per tank. It takes anywhere from 8 to 10 months, depending on the time of year. You are looking at feeding between 500 and 600 kilograms of feed into each tank to get close to a ton of fish.
Source of income here in Ishkaweta is a challenge. So the employment of those people that are even bringing money in the community.
If it makes a profit, then happy days. We'll plow that money straight back into the community. If it doesn't make a profit, it doesn't matter, it'll still make fish. And the fish will be a trade-off. Instead of them taking an impala or a kudu in a snare, they can take fish. We were shocked to find out that the river had been pillaged. The fish farm was not only to supply the people, but we made sure that the fish that we were breeding there was fish that had been endemic to the river and were endemic to the river. So we could release fish into the river and help the fish stocks in the river. We've managed to release a huge amount of fish back into the river.
You can just see the happiness. The kids are all smiling now, and life has changed a lot in the 2 years we've been here. And definitely for the better, for us too.
With only 2 medical clinics in the entire Lower Lawano, over 5,000 people have to travel long distances to get medical care. The clinics are staffed by government-paid nurses who have little medicine or medical supplies on hand.
We provide free health services to everyone that comes through. HIV testing and screening, then there's also labor ward where a woman can come and deliver for free here.
Mostly it's malaria. About 5%, 5 to 10% of the community, I would say, are the ones that have HIV.
You don't have to go to the witch doctors or African medicine sometimes, you know. There's help already. We're trying to increase our health education so that people know it's okay.
Without good medical care, upward movement for this community is non-existent.
Alcohol is very, very sensitive. These youngsters, they drink. Many are the ones who are always at the beer party drinking. They don't have time to think of planting or growing some other things. They are busy with beer. So many men have failed even to look after their own families.
On top of disease and alcoholism, access to food is a major concern.
I need almost about 30 by 50 bags so that I can manage to feed my families.
We're receiving a lot of teenage pregnancies. When they see a child reaches puberty, the poverty levels are just too high. So there's nothing much, there's no income. Others will sell off their daughter so that, you know, they can be receiving just minor income out of that child.
Older men, those who have been successful as farmers or even poaching, will add a second or third wife. These men are often 15 to 30 years older than their child brides. During my first visit, I met a very young woman who claimed to be 18. It was obvious she was maybe 14. 1 year later, I interviewed her.
Ngama bwana. Kuvutika ngambi. Ndiye na kwa tiliwie.
Ati mmala utawo kuti muzanga kalako kulusaka olo mmala utawo kuti muzanga kalako kundola.
Stingalo digaitile utitine mavuto.
There's no hope for these young girls unless the community can break the cycle of poverty. It will take a major effort to bring an end to child brides. Protecting the animals in the Lowano means an open bush war against the criminal bushmeat gangs. Since the Game Scouts have pushed these gangs out to the fringes of the GMA, the gangs have responded by putting out contracts to kill both Alistair and Roland Norton. This is a shooting war where poachers shoot first and ask questions later. Poachers have used the Game Scouts' tactics against them by having a gang member call up with an offer for information in order to set a trap. Scouts have been wounded. Firing bullets is meant to kill. The Scouts wait until dark before engaging in any actions based on tips.
We are meeting him by the road, or if we are going to his house.
Halo.
Halo, tafika patama kai.
Organiza nyamgo gani na kwenda kwenye.
Okay. Okay, tuzakupeza kwa menu. Okay.
The Nortons offer 1,000 kwacha for a poacher to turn in a firearm. It's a lot of money for these impoverished people.
We've confiscated, a lot of them are homemade shotgun and muzzleloaders. Close to 48 now. Not all of the weapons were in operation. We have taken out some AK-47s.
It's dark and we head to the poacher's village.
This road going back down, so we're turning left, huh?
We've had poachers that have been put in prison and then come back out of prison and voluntarily have surrendered their firearms to us.
The poacher signals the Scouts to stop.
So that they could either verify or prove to us that they're not poachers anymore, or that they really don't want to be tempted because they've got a gun and they don't want to go back into the bush because it was so dehumanizing for them to go into prison and be detained for them being poachers and being convicted.
An old Enfield 303 rifle, a military weapon.
Why are you giving this gun back?
I don't want to go back again to jail.
How long were you in jail?
Oh, 6 months.
Thank you
very much.
And like I said to you, you bring us valid information.
Thank you very much.
You bring us information, good information.
All right.
If we make arrests, I pay you for that information.
All right.
Not 2 weeks after filming with Chief Shikabata in October of 2018, she was poisoned.
And when I got the message that the chief was sick, we sent a vehicle to get her to a hospital as quickly as possible.
Yeah, tinambira chabina isenkani ya chigayo chinabwela kuri ba chief chamene chinapaswa ku kapena kuti bona na paswa bana banaenda. Cyo chigayo chioneka ndiye chamene chinaleta kuna ngozi kukuza kuti ba.
It seems a hammer mill, a gift to the people from the president's office, was misappropriated by one of her retainers. The chief confronted the retainer, asking it be returned. 3 days later, the chief complained of stomach pains. A week later, in a hospital in Lusaka, she was dead.
Vanamvika kuti vanapaiwa wanalozedwa ku vantu vamukomboni vamene venza kusevenza nawo machifiri tena ndiye anatenga mankhwala kuvaikira kuti vamwalire vachifi vatu.
She was an elderly person, but she was not in poor health, and so her death was a big shock to everybody. For me, she was our mother, and she was a bastion of strength to us.
It was terrible. Terrible. It was a great loss.
After my first trip to Luano in 2017, I shared the imagery with the nonprofit African Children's Schools. The next day, we were on the phone with the Nortons. Within 1 week, money for 2 new schools, plus uniforms and teachers' salaries, was wired to Zambia.
We've committed ourselves with African Children's Schools. These schools have been an absolute astounding success.
Chikaveta is a beautiful place. There are a lot of people there. And when I came here, it was all bush. There was no classroom. It was just bush like on the other side.
The school at Nyakantingi, we built a double classroom block there. We were budgeting on having around about 60 or 70 kids that would be going to that school every day. And when the school opened, there weren't enough desks to seat all the kids, so they eventually ended up by doing 3 shifts a day, and there were nearly 300 kids that were going to that school.
Between all of our game scouts, our permanent employees, and our casual workers that work on contract base when we're building schools and all of that, we spend on monthly anywhere from 80 to 100,000 kwacha. That's 100,000 kwacha coming into an area where there was nothing before. That money it's had a huge impact on people's lives out here. People all of a sudden now in their mud huts have got televisions. Kids, when they graduate from junior school or high school, now they can have an opportunity to possibly go to a college in Lusaka because the family's got a bit of an income.
I called all the parents. I told them that Makasa Safaris is actually on the ground. Just after the desks came, boxes of uniforms. If you saw your children come to school wearing the clothes that you had put on them and then they go back home wearing those uniforms, it's not us, it's actually Makasa. So in a sense, we are saying if we have more animals, they can be job creation.
But it's an interest-free loan that we give them so that they can start their own little businesses. This one here is I'm applying for a loan of 1,500 kwacha, which is about $130. And so we do this so that the women can start to try to empower themselves somehow to get some soft loans. And they buy salt, they buy mealie meal, they buy sugar, they buy cooking oil, they buy these type of clothes, we call it chitenge, and they bring it back into the area and they sell it, and then they give us back the loans in 3 or 4 months' time. But it's a way that the women in the area can become somehow empowered. And also to teach themselves to become a little bit of entrepreneurs as well. It's our way of trying to give them a little bit of hope for themselves for the future.
In December 2018, I was at the fish farm in Kapunda, looking at a huge pile of wire snares. I understood that they disposed of them by throwing them in concrete for dams and foundations. I had an idea: hire local community women to repurpose the wire snares into bracelets. One bracelet represents one animal saved in the wild. Today, Makasa has 8 women working full-time to manufacture bracelets for both women and men. The Shepherds of Wildlife Society is tasked with marketing and sales back in the United States. We hope these bracelets will fund Shepherd's mission to reconnect modern society with nature, plus soft business loans to the women in the community, and an education scholarship fund, allowing young women to attend secondary school or possibly college. A highlight for me was being able to hire the child bride I'd featured in the film, Nyala Zulu.
Africa is a hunting continent, and that hunting has got to have a benefit to the local communities. If it doesn't give that benefit back to those local communities, then the anti-hunting people, those misguided people that think that they know the answer to these questions haven't even asked themselves the proper question. They don't understand. The people of Shikabeta are totally and utterly going to become dependent on the income from the wildlife.
Kuti safari manje bwere manje ya makasa paka tapezamo na mwai ya nshito taamba kudisamo na vana kunkhala bwino nshito ni chinthu cha bwino maningi.
The anti-hunting community will say no more leopard into America, no more lion into America, no more leopard into Europe or whatever. What I'm saying to them is that that is such an immature, short-sighted policy. It will ensure the destruction of those species in Africa. If you tell us here that the lion have no value, then what's the point in having the lion here? We may as well take the lion out, because they're killing the antelope and the other animals that you're saying do have value.
Tinali na mavuto kumanyumba. So pamene mwabwela matingene sako venango mapiso ekikae si wonse but kuli venango amene wanangena mubanja amene kuli vaja wanangena vaja amene sivasebenza ife ngati tatengako kang'ono vapezako benefit.
We are giving them, the community, the first and the second rung of the ladder to stand on.
Nshito ngati iliko kuno chitawati tinkhala bwino tipezesamo chakudya chodisiramo vana.
This is the time when we are realizing that wildlife can mean a lot to us in our lives, because one, we are able to build schools, we are able to build the clinics through the animals.
Today I can tell you that the difference has been absolutely unbelievable, and it shows what can happen when man gets involved with nature and destroys nature, and then man then finds a way to get out of the way and let nature do what it does best and put it all back together again.
Ngati vativalira hunting tizavutika njala manje zakuliratu.
Come here, come and see what we're doing. Without people like us, there will be no more wildlife left in these natural environments.
Kuti vakazitengako vikumba vamene vifunika so maganiza bwino mumutu mwawo ni wozikonda.
We are proud to help Mother Nature restore this area back to its former glory. It's a privilege for us. For me, it's a dream that will take me to my grave.
The old business model for a safari hunting company must change with the needs of Africa's people and the wildlife. What the Nordens have done is chart a new path. It's a path where habitat and renewable wildlife resources are protected and managed. It's a path where the local community is given a helping hand and the responsibility to see a variety of benefits from their hard work. African governments must provide long-term agreements, and local communities grant land leases to secure development. It's the only choice if Wild Africa has any hope of surviving. Roland, Alistair, and the rest of the Norton family are kindred spirits with the Soli. They are a part of the tribe. They care about the land. They care about the wildlife. And they care about the people.